Don't do a Roth conversion before you watch this video. I'm Matt Zettel, a certified financial planner professional, and Roth conversions have been all the rage in the wealth management industry. But they're not for everyone. And if you convert at the wrong time or in the wrong amount, you could end up handing the IRS more than you needed to. The exact opposite of what you were trying to do. These aren't a silver bullet or a one-size-fits-all, so stick around and I'll tell you what to know before you make this decision. So here's what we're going to do. First, I'll walk you through what a Roth conversion actually is and why so many advisors are talking about them right now. Then I'll show you the math with made-up numbers so you can actually understand the fundamentals of how this works rather than just talking about definitions. Here's why this even matters. Most people retiring today have a big chunk of savings sitting in a traditional IRA or a 401k. You never paid tax on that money going in, and it grew tax-deferred. But the IRS doesn't let you defer forever. They'll want to get their fair share after waiting all this time. At a certain age, you're required to start pulling money out, whether you need it or not. Those are required minimum distributions, or RMDs for short. Every dollar that comes out gets taxed as ordinary income. Because the RMD amount is based upon your age, it typically goes up every single year. Here's the part nobody warns you about. By the time RMDs kick in, those forced withdrawals, stacked on top of Social Security and any pensions or other income, can push you into a higher tax bracket. In some cases, even higher than you were ever in while you were working. You didn't do anything wrong. You just saved well. The tax code doesn't exactly reward that if you don't implement a withdrawal strategy properly. A Roth conversion is how you get ahead of it. It allows you to pay taxes today, to hopefully save them in the future. You take money out of your traditional IRA, pay the tax now at today's rate, and move it into a Roth IRA. From that point forward, it grows completely tax-free. No RMDs on it, ever. When you eventually pull it out, tax-free. Now, the strategy is not convert everything. It's usually the opposite. It's about finding the years your income is unusually low. You've retired, but haven't started Social Security, or there's a gap before RMDs start, and converting just enough to fill up a lower bracket without spilling into the next one. I call these the gap years. They don't last. Once RMDs start, that window's closed. And here's part of why this conversation is happening so much right now. Nobody has a crystal ball on where tax rates are headed. Brackets move, they always have, they always will, depending on what Congress does in any given year. That uncertainty cuts both ways, but here's the thing about a Roth conversion. It lets you lock in a rate you actually know today, instead of gambling on a rate you can't control years from now. That's really the trade you're making. Certainty now, instead of hoping the dice land in your favor later. For some people, that trade is well worth it. For others, it isn't. Which is exactly why this isn't a blanket recommendation. It's a run your numbers conversation. And here's why I opened this video the way I did. Roth conversions are not automatically the right move. And anyone telling you they always are the right answer hasn't looked at your numbers. It depends on your current bracket, your future income, whether you're near an IRMA surcharge threshold. That affects your Medicare premiums. Separate video coming on that. And also how many gap years you've actually got before RMDs start. Get the timing or the amount wrong, and a conversion can bump you into a higher bracket than the one you were trying to avoid. This isn't a set it and forget it move. It has to be run through the numbers every single year you're considering it. That's the concept. Now, let's see it work. Quick disclaimer before I start. Everything here is made up. Not a real client, not exact tax brackets. Just a simplified example so you can see the shape of the decision. Your numbers will look different. This is about the logic, not the specific figures. Let's say we've got a couple. Bob and Carol, retired at 62. They've got $800,000 in a traditional IRA. Not touching it yet. Small pension, some savings covering day-to-day, and they haven't turned on Social Security. That means their taxable income this year is low, say around $40,000. Lower bracket than they've seen in 20 years. Here's the opportunity. Say that bracket goes up to $60,000 of taxable income before the next one kicks in. That's $20,000 of room just sitting there, unused. So we convert $20,000 from the IRA to a Roth. They'll owe tax on it this year. At their current rate, let's call it 12%. That's roughly $2,400 paid now, ideally from other savings, not the IRA itself. That $20,000 moves into the Roth, grows tax-free forever, no RMDs on it. When Bob and Carol pull it out, or when it passes to their kids, nobody owes a dime of income tax on it. Here's where it gets good. Bob and Carol don't do this once. If their income stays low for a few more years before Social Security and RMDs kick in, they repeat it. Another $20,000 next year, same bracket, same math. Do that 4 or 5 years running, and they've moved $80,000 to $100,000 out of the IRA and into the Roth, all taxed at that low 12% rate instead of whatever rate RMDs would have forced on them later. That's the whole play. You're not converting everything at once. You're filling the cheap seats every year they're available and stopping right at the edge of the next bracket. Now let's flip it, because the contrast is really where this lands. Say Bob and Carol don't do any of this. They just leave the full $800,000 sitting in the IRA, untouched, all the way until RMDs force their hand. By the time they hit RMD age, that account has kept growing. Let's just say, illustratively, it's grown to somewhere around $1.2 million. RMDs aren't optional, and they're not small. The IRS formula pulls out a meaningful chunk every single year, and because Bob and Carol never touched it earlier, that first required withdrawal is a lot bigger than the $20,000 a year they could have been converting voluntarily. That bigger withdrawal lands on top of Social Security and any pension income, all in the same year. It's entirely possible that pushes them into a higher bracket than the one they were ever in while converting. And it might trigger an IRMA surcharge on their Medicare premiums, too. None of that was a choice at that point. It's just what happens when RMDs force a large amount out all at once, instead of smaller amounts coming out on your own terms over several years. That's the actual comparison. It's not pay tax versus don't pay tax. You're paying tax either way. It's pay some tax now, on your terms, at a rate you control, versus pay tax later, on the IRS's terms, at a rate you don't control. That's the whole reason this strategy gets talked about so much. A few things this example is deliberately not showing you. It's not accounting for IRMA thresholds. Pushing your income up in a given year can trigger those, and that's a real constraint. It's not accounting for state taxes, which vary a lot. And it's not a recommendation for any specific dollar amount. That $20,000 came from a bracket edge I made up for this example. The real version of this involves your actual tax return, your actual bracket, before you touch anything. This is really what income and tax planning in retirement looks like. It's not one decision. It's a sequence of decisions across years where each one impacts the next. Roth conversions, when Social Security starts, how RMDs get managed, what accounts you draw from first. None of it happens in isolation. That's the kind of planning I do with people. Plan first, product second. I'm not going to tell you to convert your whole IRA because it sounded good on a video. I'd need your actual numbers, your other income sources, and where you sit relative to the brackets and IRMA thresholds before I'd say anything close to a recommendation. If you want to know whether this actually applies to you, that's exactly what a retirement income review is for. It's a free conversation to look at your specific numbers with me and talk about what a real plan looks like. If an opportunity is present, we can help you explain why it makes sense, how to calculate your numbers, and how much money you'd keep in your pocket. If you're interested in this, there's a link to my calendar below. If you want to learn more, check out my other videos on my channel, as well as the retirement income and taxes guide in the description as well. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to visiting with you soon.